On this episode of Black in the Stacks, I chat with author Khadijah VanBrakle about her interests, her views on why it's important that children and teens who are both Black American and Muslim see themselves on the printed page, and how Gilmore Girls inspired her latest novel, My Perfect Family. The novel follows 16-year-old Leena, who has always wanted a big family, as she discovers she has a Muslim grandfather and aunt she never knew about, and also learns that family comes with tangled histories she may not be able to heal. Khadijah VanBrakle is a mother of five, holds a bachelor's degree in accounting and a half-finished MBA, and was a recipient of the Highlights Foundation's Muslim Storytellers Fellowship in 2021. Well, thank you for joining us today. I hope that you are doing well. I'm excited to talk to you today about your latest novel, My Perfect Family. But let's just get right to it. Tell us your author story. Who is Khadijah VanBrakle? Where are you from? Your background? All that good stuff.
Okay, so my name's Khadijah VanBrakle. My parents were born in Boston, but my sister and I were both born in Canada. So we spent the formative years until I was probably 16, 17 in Canada. Then we moved here. Writing was definitely not what I thought I was going to do. I love to read, and I always have. My background is I have an undergraduate degree in accounting and a half-finished MBA. So it was definitely not on the horizon as far as I was concerned. um, Once I found out, it was probably 8 years ago, that there wasn't a single contemporary young adults traditionally published book in with Black American Muslim main characters. That's when I said, okay, we got to fix this because my daughters weren't represented. I have five kids, and the three middle are daughters, and one of them was really a reader. They're all readers, but one we went to the library looking for books and we couldn't find any, and we asked the librarian, and she was like, "Yeah, I'm sorry, we don't have any." So I was like, "Yeah, this is not good." So I decided to start writing.
Um, you've written other books, but we are here to talk about My Perfect Family. So without giving too much away, can you tell our listeners just a little bit about what the book is about?
So the protagonist, her name is Leena. She's a 16-year-old high school sophomore, and what she's always wanted was a big family. It's just been her and her mom. She's been raised by a single mom. So when she finds out that not only does she have extended family about an hour away from where she lives in Albuquerque, in Santa Fe, New Mexico, she finds out that both her grandfather and her great aunt are Muslim. So then the deep held family secrets start to unravel. So I think of it because my inspiration was the fraught mother daughter relationships in the Gilmore Girls, but within a fractured Black American Muslim family.
Yeah, I read that. And so I was curious about how you would take um, elements from a show like Gilmore Girls and translate or adapt them to a Black Muslim American family. So, like, what was the approach when you started the writing process for this book?
So I think I always start with character. So I had to write pages and pages of who Leena was and what her misbelief was. And also, I am drawn to writing universal themes, and because the more difficult subjects like teen pregnancy and running away and deeply held family secrets are not necessarily openly discussed in my faith community, that's where I always start.
Yeah, and I think that that to me was the interesting part of reading it because there are so many nuanced characters or nuanced, I guess, traits and characteristics in what I would consider this book to be a coming of age novel. Um, and so it's interesting to see like the key differences because I've read a bunch of young adult Black female American novels that didn't really delve into beliefs or religion or spirituality. And so to kind of see that dynamic on paper was, to me, very refreshing. Um, So you mentioned a little bit about Lena finding family. So her grandfather, um, how do I say this, offers or presents some financial generosities, I can say, um, but it comes with strings, right? So
Exactly.
uh, yeah. So how did you craft the grandfather to be, in my opinion, number one, complicated, right? A very complicated character, but also sympathetic. And I guess what was the challenging part about bringing Tariq to life?
I so I think I like to I try as much as possible to craft characters that are very realistic since I write realistic fiction. So I think that most people are not just one dimensional. So I wanted to make sure that as much as he wants to get to know his granddaughter, he's still affected by not having a relationship with his own daughter, which is Lena's mother, for almost 20 years. So I didn't want him to let those feelings and that hurt go. I just wanted him to say, okay, well, I'm going to have to think about if I focus too much on how I was hurt, then how is that going to affect the relationship that I want with my grandchild? And especially because she's the only grandchild.
Right, right, exactly, exactly. Um, so I know earlier you mentioned that you were born and raised in Canada to American parents. Um, did that? I mean, I'm sure it did, but are there any specific elements of your youth that you um, put into Lena, basically just kind of discovering her own identity and then being kind of caught between, as you mentioned, her mother's past with her grandfather and her new family's present?
Let's think about that. That's a really good question. I haven't thought of. Nobody's asked me that before. So I think she's like, yay! You got a gold star. So for I guess for me is I did not grow up with a lot of black influence. Like I've never been to our family has never had um like a family reunion. So I think like I feel free to like I don't write stereotypes. So I because I refuse. So I feel like it's frees me to like I want my stories to be universal, but I want always to feature what I know, and that and I'm a black woman, and I have black daughters, and I was a black daughter, so I really want. So I'm free. I feel like because I grew up somewhere else, and like and learned later in life about like say for example Black history. I mean, I took a class in college, and my eyes were open. I did not grow up with that, but it wasn't a big deal because I didn't learn American history either. So I so, so I definitely feel free, but of course, my important thing for me is voice. So I want to make sure that all my characters, the teens, sound like teenagers and think like teenagers. Um, and it definitely helps that I have three daughters, especially the youngest one, who will say, "No, no, no, we don't." I mean, I will definitely ask her vernacular. I will ask her all the things, and she's like, "Yeah, we don't talk like that." Like, what are you doing? Change that.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, yeah, they're just kind of like your built-in focus group, I guess. You can go to each of them and get um, three different, answers and kind of meld them all together to see what fits. So I I think every writer would pay to just kind of have, their target audience sort of right next door or anything like that, or even just downstairs eating all the snacks or something.
Exactly.
So the book overall, or one of the overarching themes was definitely secrets and miscommunication. Or at least I found there to be, a bit of miscommunication. So when you're writing, like about a family's sort of emotional accounts or events that have happened, um, how is it the same as like everything else, just trying to keep it as realistic as possible when you're um, formulating the words on paper to bring um, those issues to a head after so many years?
Um, so of course it's realistic as possible, but I have to also take into consideration who the characters are that I've written, and how they would deal with the situation that I put them in. So I definitely, and that is where I think secondary eyes help me to make sure that reactions and, are they, is it too much, is it too little, is, or like is something, like for me, because of my background in accounting, like a plot hole kills me. Like if a reader says, well, how come you just didn't solve, like walk from point A to point B, I was like, yeah, no, I need potholes, I need, stop signs, I need everything to stop my character just from being able to solve the problem easily. So I definitely, that's where my agent and my editor are like, they'll ask me certain questions to make sure that I'm getting the feelings correctly. I also, one of my best friends has a master's degree in psychology. So sometimes I'll send her snippets, and she'll be like, girl, what is this? She'll be like, no, 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 no. We're not doing that. Because she's like, that makes no sense. Change it. I was like, okay, thank you.
Um, so the book also, um, from the title, sort of suggests, or gives me the feel of like an aspirational ideal, like maybe that's something that Lena is desiring or wanting. Um, in your point of view, what does the word perfect mean to Lena at the beginning of the book versus the end?
So I think at the beginning, because she's only known just her and her mom as a two-person family, she that she thinks that the grass is greener on the other side, and that having an extended family to attend graduations or birthdays or the holiday season, and she's never really had that. So she thinks, oh, but if I just had this. So I think for me, like the log line is sometimes getting what you want threatens what you already have. And I think that Lena throughout the story learns that because she did not expect the family drama that came with this long lost family.
Yeah, um, the drama is it's a succinct word to summarize it because it was, please, people listening, please go and get this book. It's, my goodness. um, it, and I can kind of like, as a fan of Gilmore Girls, like that mother daughter relationship, that you know it doesn't quite mirror my life, but there are elements, as both a daughter, who was raised by a single mother, but also as a mother who, is raising a daughter and has, my own. I have my own dynamic with my daughter, but I'm married, and so it's completely different for my daughter growing up with two parents in the household versus my experience growing up with just one. And my daughter is an only child; she has no siblings, so it's completely different from me. I have siblings. um, so I think the writing does a very good job of highlighting that tumultuous relationship, between Lena and her mom, um, and it makes for a very, um, I don't want to say roller coaster ride. That's not what those are. I mean, that's the word that's coming, but it makes for a very captivating read, in my opinion. And I've read quite a bit, books that are, again, not this specific focus, but coming of age, that sometimes falls flat. And so it's refreshing that not only is it a new take, but the writing also supports that new take and lends itself to the narrative in that. Um, does I read online that you've, mentioned that, Lisa Cron's story Genius is your writing process is heavily influenced by that. Um, are there any specific methods like the scene card or any of those things that you've used, um, that helped you kind of get into a more pivotal moment, either from trying to elicit an emotion of truth from Leena or another character that's in the book?
So thank you for the word captivating. I love that. Um, I think for me, so what I do, because I need a method to my madness, because I hate to draft. I mean, it's with a passion. I hate it, but I have to tell the story, so I have to do it because I love to revise. Like I would revise all day. Somebody's gonna have to like yank my laptop or the papers out of my hands to say stop revising, or it's good, it's fine, it's the best. Yes, yes, you're done. So I think for me, one of the best things that is in the Lisa Cohn method, and I'm thinking it's there, is the reverse outline. So I write the whole entire first, and then maybe I'll do a little tweaking as a second draft, but I write a reverse outline. So I write the story first, and then and then sometimes you feel a little overwhelmed because you're like, oh my God, I have to outline this whole entire thing. But it's so much easier when you have the words on the page. So you just write down what happens in the chapter. So, for example, if you are going according to your revision notes, your agents, your editors, your beta readers, whoever revision notes, you can say, because sometimes when you make one change, it affects things down the line, but then it's easier to find where those things are when you have detailed outline. So you have to go make those changes.
Right. So it sounds like a more constructive version of um, the writing term pantser, which is someone's writing by the seat of their pants, but you actually go back and sort of do the outline to follow up with that. So that's an interesting take. Yeah, I've talked to a lot of people who are either pantsers or strictly outliners, but it sounds like you're kind of a combination of the two.
Well, I was a pantser, and it did not work for me. My first young adult novel that not even my agent has seen yet, that never got me an agent. It was so hard to write and revise because I really didn't have an idea. So I think Lisa Cron's Story Genius worked so well for me because I write character-driven stories, and lot of character work. Like you even write 3 scenes to get to understand your character's misbelief, to form it, to cement it before page 1 of chapter 1. For me, the scene cards are really beneficial because I'm no longer a pantser, but I don't necessarily outline either. So I really believe in the method. It just works for me. I mean, everybody, whatever works for you is what's best. But what works for me is Story Genius. And so every single time I have an idea and I start a new project, if it's a novel, I read Story Genius again.
Are there any additional, or are there any YA authors that you read either in the past or currently reading that influence how you approach writing your stories?
Not necessarily how I approach, but just even the fact that I'm writing, because I'm just gonna be honest, I've never wanted to write about sunshine and rainbows. Like I want to write about the harder subjects because I feel like this is, in addition to the lack of books with teenagers that have the dual marginalization that I share, they also don't talk about the difficult topics and situations and issues that our teens face. And it's not just Black American Muslim teens, but all teens can face. I try to write universal themes. So, for example, after I read Speak by Lil Hales Anderson, all 3 of Tiffany D. Jackson's coming of age novels, especially Monday's Not Coming, Jennifer Niven's All the Right Places, and then the last one was I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter by Erica L. Sanchez. I literally I mean, I just dove into those books and they gave me permission because it was like, oh, okay, so it's not that teens can't handle it. It's just you have to make sure that your story is compelling and it's well written and it's relevant. So I just read those books and I was like, I'm off to the races now. And now I have permission. I've given myself permission to write the stories that I want to write.
So in my research, I came across either an article. Well, I came across an article That mentions that your or at least a first draft of a manuscript you were working on was a middle grade fantasy. Is that accurate?
Yes. So when I started writing, because when I draft um, contemporary young adult, I read young adult fantasy. So I really
Mhm.
like the genre. I don't. I'm way too anal to be able to write it because, like, for me, it would be like, what's the monetary system? What's the government like? What's taxation like? Like, it would just go on like, ad nauseum. So, because of my love of fantasy and all things Lord of the Rings, um, I said that, so I had an idea. So, and it was really bad, and it's still really bad. It's like 25,000 words of really terrible, no character development, no, not like none of things. And, and I probably will never, ever, ever. I mean, I go back to the idea, but I will never go back to try to fix it because I mean, I would have to like scrap everything because there was no world building done.
Yeah.
And I love Sabbath Year and Tracy Dion and Suzanne Collins. Sunrise on the Reaping. I just read. Oh my God, it's amazing. So I would definitely no. There's no way. I want my name has to be on something like that. So I would not probably write that right now. That's my imposter syndrome.
Um, if you could give Lena one piece of advice, um, at the start of her journey, what would it be? And then if you could give her mother a completely different piece of advice, what would that be?
Ooh, this you have a good question. Woo. Okay, let me think. What would I tell Lena? I would say try to put yourself in your mother's shoes
Mm,
because as the secrets unveil and she's disappointed and she's hurt and she's upset and all the things, it's try your best even though it's hard. She's 16 and part of her feels like betrayed, by the only person that he's ever known as family. So I would say try. And of course, this is after she finds out. So just try to, have just a little bit of empathy and just maybe not be upset as much if that's even possible. But, you could at least, attempt.
yeah.
Oh, and advice for Asia, which is Lena's mom,
Mm,
would be to put yourself in your daughter's shoes because you never expected and she never expected for the family secrets to come out the way that they did. So try to remember how you felt when there was situations that you weren't really fond of as a teenager that
mhm.
led you to distance yourself from your own family. So I would say try to remember that. And it's really difficult because I think that the trauma that especially the mom is dealing with was never dealt with.
Yeah, yeah. Um, if you could give our listeners a couple of words to describe the ending of the book to encourage them to go out and pick it up, what would those words be?
Woo! Um, I think it's really hard for me to use one word because I'm very loquacious.
Go
As you can
for it.
probably tell. So I think for me, especially about the ending, for me, I want them to come away, especially teenagers. Of course, all readers, but especially teenagers, that family should not be defined in a really strict sense. And I
Mhm,
really want them to come away with that because I really feel like Lena and her best friend Dee Dee are, even though they're best friends, I think I wanted to portray them as closer than some sister relationships.
mhm,
So I think definitely I want people to expand their definition of what family is. And then I want to think about, I want them to see her journey and also to maybe think about her journey in relation to their own, maybe some of the things that they can relate to and think about forgiveness
mm, yeah.
and what that looks like.
Right. I was
And
about
it
to
could look like nothing. It could look like that it's unforgivable. But I want them to be like, okay, do we, how is Lena feeling at the end versus at the end of the second chapter?
right. Right. Yeah, I was about to say like
Hmm.
what does forgiveness look like, right? It looks
Hmm.
different to everyone. So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. We're locked in. I love this.
Yeah, I spent a lot
So
of time with this one, with this book. So
I know a little bit about what is the other book that you Fatima Takes the Cake?
Fatima takes a cake. Hmm.
Fatima. Yes. How how are those characters, because that character is also another sort of young adult Muslim woman. Um are they Is Fatima similar to Lena, or are
No.
they okay. How how are they
Okay.
different for anyone who
So
picks up both books?
So Fatima Tate, she's first of all, she's a high school senior, and she knows what she wants to do. Unfortunately, her parents, especially her strong-willed mother, does not want her to become a pastry chef. If you look at the
Yeah.
cover, you can see she's holding bakery tools.
Mhm,
So it's because her, especially her mother, has other plans for her, which involve marrying a young man from a wealthy Muslim family here in Albuquerque, and she does things that are little. Because she's driven. So, for example, there's a Great British Bake Off bakery competition that she's a part of, and she wants to do well, but she has to keep it a secret. So, of course, there's a love interest. So my editor, um, so um, so correctly used the term faux, like the word faux French, FAUX, which is
mhm,
fake. Right? So it's a
mhm,
fake romance because the love interest, Raheem, uh, I consider him the Pied Piper of parents, which is he's charming until he's not. And Lena
mhm,
discovers that at the end.
right. Before we get into the last couple of questions, which are kind of the ones I ask everyone on the show, with the
Hmm.
exception of one fun one that is specific that I would love to get your answer for. Is there anything else that you want to say um, about My Perfect Family to give someone who's hesitant or just kind of on the fence about going out and purchasing it?
So again, I mean, it's a coming of age story. Um, I think maybe read an excerpt and see, on whatever platform that's possible. I'm not sure if on Bookshop or when you support indies, but if it is possible to go on Bookshop and see if there's an excerpt or on Google Books. I do know that sometimes you can read excerpts. I don't think of course it's not up yet because it's not out yet, but
Yeah.
just and get a feel for it. I think definitely get a feel for it, and and sometimes if you, for example, if you have an e-reader, and sometimes you can download a sample,
Hmm.
and I think you could take those kind of things, and because I really feel that the universality of the story will appeal to a lot of readers, and but of course, if it's not everybody's cup of tea, and that's fine. But yeah, if you want to just give it a chance, I appreciate it.
So now we get into some of the more, I guess, nuanced questions that I ask everyone else. So, what, if you can think of one thing, what's one thing you will always be proud of?
I will be proud that I didn't give up, that I is perseverance. Because, like I said, I do my first young adult contemporary is still sitting on my hard drive, and it's 81,000 words of it needs a revision. But it's about predatory grooming, and it was,
Mm,
I did have some, agents who were just like, it was a really hard topic for them to swallow. That's because, again, the character is a Black American Muslim. So I think for me, and I overqueried it. I know I did, because I probably queried it to like
mm,
100 agents, and perseverance. And I'm that person who is like, maybe I'll just go work at the IRS because I don't know if I can keep doing this. But I was determined after that when I wrote the first one, Fatima Tate, and then now subsequently My Perfect Family, that I was going to, like, I had to get my method together and my writing process, so that I could write the best book possible. Because um, even though I've had, snide comments to the sides of my face, though, about, oh, it must be so easy for you in traditional publishing because you're Black and Muslim. And I was like, really? Is that what you think? No.
Right.
Exactly. Especially when there's not that many traditionally published books in contemporary YA that feature Black American Muslims. I can count probably on one hand, and two of those are mine. Um,
Yeah.
so I definitely think perseverance, and you just never know. And of course, everybody's different. And if somebody doesn't want to traditionally publish and they want to self-publish, I mean, I applaud them, because I don't have those skills. Like, you have to edit and format and, all the things that I'm
Hmm.
like, "Well, I can't draw to save my life." Um, but I definitely think that perseverance is first and foremost. And I have a card, and I think there was a different question that you asked me, but this is also applicable. I have a card that on my desk that says, "Why did this story mean so much to me?" And the story has to mean something to me for me to tell it.
Mm.
And my girls have to be given an impossible choice.
I think you may have answered it a little bit, but I'm going to ask anyway. What's
Hmm.
the most surprising thing you've learned about yourself?
But I can actually write a book. I never, because I love to read, like, literally, if there are people, you see these things sometime, you're like, if we gave you $1 million, could you stay in this room with food and a bathroom and, no TV, and we just gave you, could you stay in this room for every day you stay in the room, you get this much money? I'm like, oh my goodness gracious, if my kids and my family would take care of, I'm like, come see me in a year.
Right.
I'm good. I don't need the internet. Just give me the books that I want, or just give me the internet so that I can search up books. Um, yeah, no. So I think that, because if I had $1 for every time somebody says to me when I found out that I'm an author, that, oh, I've always had an idea, I've always wanted to write a book, I'm like, then do it. And they're like, oh no, I don't think no. Mm-mm. My background has nothing to do with writing, and if I can do it, anybody can do it. So I think the fact that this is something that I'm like, I want to tell stories.
Yeah.
And of course you have to also remember that there's the business side of the writing, especially with traditional publishing, and all with self-publishing as well, because you're the one who gets the word out there about your books. But I'm definitely proud of the fact that, because also it's not an easy thing to share your work, because this is like another child to you. And
Hmm.
and if you've tried your best and put your heart and soul and everything, it's debilitating if you get somebody who's like, it's horrible, it's awful, I hated it. For that reason, I don't read reviews at all. Like, of
Yeah.
course, if my editor sends, like, because I'm very grateful and happy that My Perfect Family has received 2-star reviews, trade reviews already, even though it's not out yet. But like, I don't read reviews on Goodreads, on whatever site, on Amazon. I don't read them. I have a
Hmm.
friend, an author friend in Florida, who sends me, um, like, if she sees a review about for one of my books, she will cut and paste it, send it to me, because I don't read it.
Yeah, I've I've heard that too, where people have said that they don't read reviews unless it's like an absolutely glowing one. And even then, it wasn't because they went and sought it out. It was because their publicist or their editor or somebody saw it and sent it to them as a way of encouraging them. But yeah, as I was very hesitant to start this specific podcast, and I had the idea for it years ago. I just that imposter syndrome.
Hmm.
um, but I knew that there were podcasts or blogs or whatever you want to call them that catered to reading and writers and authors and stuff like that, but they pretty much talk to everyone. And I really wanted to specifically highlight people from the African American and African diaspora, as it
Hmm.
related to libraries and literary works, advocates, authors, poets, publishers, even like just it runs the gamut, but specifically for people who look like me, and have likely shared some of the same experiences like me. But yeah, I was very hesitant, and I'm thankful that there's no way for anybody to like really review this in a Goodreads format. Like all I get is, I've gotten the occasional, well, the audio is this. I'm like, I'm experimenting. Leave me alone. Let
Hmm.
me own my craft. But yeah, I get that, the protective aspect of it, because you're creative, and um, especially when you pour your heart and soul into something and it just gets ripped to shreds. Sometimes it can take a toll. But
Exactly. But congratulations, I mean, you did it.
yeah, yes, thank you.
Mhm.
What books or other creative works are currently occupying your time? Like, what are you reading, if anything, right now?
Oh, let's turn around. You can't see this, but I have books everywhere. My TBR is ridiculous. So books that I need to finish are All My Rage by Saba Tahir. Tracy Dion's second book, Bloodmark. Oh, I haven't even started,
Mm,
but I have Oathbound because I needed to have all three, of course.
right.
Um, um, there's a book for one of my Muslim storyteller mentors, S.K. Ali, fledgling her first YA fantasy, which I have, and I'm looking right at it, but I haven't read it yet because it's been a little busy. And then I also have dived into a few adult books. So I've read one Kennedy Ryan, one Tia Williams, and I'm loving it.
Mhm.
So those are the things that are like around that surround me right now.
Okay. And so I know My Perfect Family is not out yet, but have you started working on anything either new or revisiting something that's been a previous sort of work in progress?
Well, actually, my agent has something in a different genre that is with her at the moment, and I have started. I actually start. I finished my all my processes, and I'm probably 4 chapters into something in a totally different genre. It's contemporary, but it's not an adult. Then I do have a contemporary middle grade that I started, but I had to take a break, a pause when I had to do edits and stuff like that for my third family. So I haven't looked at that in probably a year. Um, and that's sort of me not knowing, like, because my 14-year-old, oh, he's a high school student, now this year, but he's always like, how come you just write about girls? And I was like, I don't know. So I'm trying to come up with, an idea. I have to have a possible choice, but I'm really influenced as far as the middle grades by Judy Blume because I read every
Mhm.
single Judy Blume book when I was old enough. Well, I
Mhm.
don't know if I was old enough because there was no such thing as book banning, and I would spend like whole afternoons in the
Yeah.
library. And there was nobody saying, "Oh, don't go over those two adult books. Don't go over that, young adult books. You're not old
Right.
enough." There was none of that. So I read what I wanted to read. So yeah, definitely. My mother never asked what I was reading. So and my sister, she was like, okay, whatever. So yeah, so I really want to write a middle grade in the vein of Judy Blume, but like to think like Judy Blume meets some of the middle grade books in verse that I've read. Other Words for Home by Jasmine Warga, like took my heart and ripped it out and then put it back. I don't think I could ever. I need all the words because I talk a lot, but
Yeah.
I want the emotional impact of that book.
Hmm. Okay. Well, I mean, you've mentioned it a couple of times, but what role um, have libraries played in your life, and do they still play a role in your life?
Yeah, they made it. But first of all, I need for other authors to recognize and realize that we're writing the book, but it takes a lot of hands when you're talking about getting books in the hands of your target audience, especially for kidlit. I mean, not so much for teens because if they find the book
Yeah.
then, they have their own ways. But, if they're finding it through their school librarian or their public librarian. So I think for between indie, booksellers and librarians, teachers, English teachers, authors and, people like you who are, putting in the work to be like highlighting authors, I think that we need to be the biggest proponents of libraries because even though, yes, you want to sell 1,000,000,000,000,000 copies, yes. But guess what? Libraries buy books.
Hmm.
And also, you want to reach your target. At least for me, I want to talk to teenagers. I want to tell them, especially teenagers who, like, if you don't find a book that addresses something that you think should be in fiction or even nonfiction, I want to encourage them to write it. I want them to also take up the mantle and say, okay, I'm going to tell my story. And I want them to know not to take especially a traditionally published book and say, oh my God, it's so good. I will never be able to write like this, because they need to understand how much revision went into that. Not just with the author, not just with their agent, but with the publisher, with you did developmental edits, you did copy edits, you did line edits, like all the things. So I tell people in person all the time this. I'm like, please, please, please do not pick up one of my books and think you could never write something, because you could probably write something better. I believe in you. But because, it's work, and it's not like, and that's why of course we know that when we see television shows or movies that show like a writer's life is just so easy, and they see that the whatever and they just crank it out, and then, in 2 weeks it's out, it's on the bestseller list.
Right.
You're like, I don't
Yeah.
think so.
Yeah.
So let's not get, an unrealistic expectation. I love libraries. Like a lot of times, like that's my safe place. Like I still use them, if I can support a local library, especially here, I will do it. Do you want to talk about this? Do you want to talk about that? I have to be careful because I did attend one library group, and I felt like some of their participants were like, "Oh, well, she's a traditionally published author. What do you think?" I'm like, "Yeah, no, yeah, no." I'm like, everybody, what they have to say is valid. Now, if you're going to talk about something that's about traditional publishing, you're just blatantly wrong. I will correct you. But like my opinion holds is not more sway than somebody else, especially if we're talking about a middle grade title and you're talking to middle grade that target audience. Listen to them. Don't defer to me. Listen to them and see what they have to say. So
Um,
yeah, I love libraries.
Good to hear. Good to. Yeah, I've been, and I guess it's a little different for me because I do have my MLIS, so I am a
Hmm.
trained librarian. But yeah, it's always weird when people find out that I am a librarian. It's immediately like, well, what do you recommend I read and this and that? And I was like, number one, I don't do that anymore. I can, but I don't do that anymore. And I was like, honestly, as long as you're reading and it makes you happy and you're interested in it, it doesn't matter. It as long as you're reading and it brings you joy,
Hmm.
um, it doesn't matter. It could be a magazine, it could be a graphic novel, which and graphic novels are real reading. I will die on that hill.
Well, I'll be right there
Audiobooks.
beside you, sister. Right there. I'll be right there. Because
Yeah.
I have a 14-year-old who loves a young man who loves to read, and of course, did he do Captain Underpants and
Yep.
Dog and Cat or something that his sisters were like, I don't know. No, he before he would sit and read a whole entire. Jason Reynolds is his favorite,
Mhm.
author. He was reading. He was looking at graphic novels, and his books. The amount of books that he has in his room is almost as rival to mine. I have to say.
Yeah. And also like graphic novels for me are a way to engage even the most reluctant reader because and I worked in a middle school as a school librarian, and the majority of my reluctant readers gravitated towards graphic novels because they felt like they were, in their words, less intimidating than a
Hmm.
regular book. And so I played into that. The stuff that I ordered was, I beefed up my graphic novel section because I wanted to encourage them um, to read, and it didn't matter to me that it was a graphic novel. At one point, I was even looking at audiobooks for some kids who couldn't didn't have the attention span to kind of sit and focus and read the words. And that's something that I talked about with another author as well about, how there's a study where, youth, the attention span is so short now that the reading levels are just plummeting. And as a parent, I am in a little bit of that as well. And it's kind of an ego hurt to or a ding to my ego because it's like, I'm a librarian, an award-winning librarian, and it's just like, yeah, your kid doesn't read. And I'm like, she reads. It just, she's 8. So, um, I have to figure out her interests and then find materials that are, revolving around her interests. And in some cases, they just don't exist. And so,
Mhm.
as you mentioned, if we don't see ourselves somewhere, we should put ourselves there.
Exactly. And just how think how fortunate she is that she has you and who can help her, but
Yeah.
and lock into those things that she really likes. And that, and the love of reading, hopefully if she keeps it and
Mhm.
of course there's times in school where you don't have time to, time to read, you're tired because you have so much required reading. But
Mhm.
sometimes you can fall and just lose yourself in a book and that you don't need TV, you don't need your phone. You could just be like, okay, I'm in this world and I'm there, and and I'm loving it. Like I can remember Sabbath to Hears Ever in the Ashes Quartet. Like after I read book 3, it was a year to book 4. I almost died. I've never met her, but I wish I could because I would tell her exactly that. But she's so real on social media. But I mean, that love of reading started young for me, and I'm so glad. And this is why we have to remember as adults that, look at these barriers to reading. Like people are going to critique what you're reading, and if people want to ban the books that you have access to, like where do you think that love of reading is going to come from if you're trying to put all these roadblocks for kids today?
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
have, of course, I didn't allow my son to read one of Jason Reynolds' books until now because he's 14. And I'm like, okay, so, but guess what? When he came home last year at the first day of 8th grade, he was like, Mommy, guess what? I'm like, what? He held up a copy of The Hate You Give. And he's like, look what our first book is. And he was ecstatic. He's like, I get to read it now. And I was like, okay. And he would do, and he was like, okay. He would read ahead.
Yeah.
He would just be like, "I'm gonna ace this test," and I'm like, "Okay." And he was like, and he has never seen the movie. And I think at the
Mm.
end he saw the movie, and he was like, he didn't even know there was a movie. He probably was trying to find it on the internet. But he was so excited. Why don't you want that for your children?
Yeah.
I just never that just escapes me.
Same. Same. Well, it may be a little bit too early, but are there any like book signings or meet and greets scheduled?
You mean locally?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, actually, on September 6th here in Albuquerque, the launch event is at Page One Books. It's a free event, but they are asking people to RSVP. So if you go to Page One Books, their website,
Mhm.
then you can RSVP. Also, the next day, which is Grandparents' Day, I'll be on a panel here in Albuquerque again at Bookworks. And because September 7th is Grandparents' Day, so we'll be talking about stories that have multi-generational themes. And in October, I will be at one of the Albuquerque libraries. They have a teen book club, so it's called Read Between the Spines at the International District Library here in Albuquerque, and I will be there talking about My Perfect Family.
That's such a cute
So,
name. I love that name.
oh, thank you. And yeah, there's a couple other things coming out that I haven't posted about yet, like
Okay.
so a couple other events and that kind of stuff.
Okay. I have two more questions. So,
Okay.
where the second to last one is where can people find you either on social media or just online?
Okay, so my website is just my name. It's khadijahvanbrakle.com. And same thing for Instagram and Instagram, and it just feeds most of the time into my threads. It's just my name at Khadijah VanBrakle. I do have a Facebook, um, because my mother, that's the only social media she has, so you can find me there. Yeah, my website and Instagram. I do have a Blue Sky, which I never check. Um, and like never. And I probably don't post things on there either. I have a LinkedIn, which is just my name is again, so that's just easier. My Twitter is just for updates because I turned off the notification. So I'm sorry, on X.
No, it's Twitter. It will always be Twitter. I don't care.
Exactly. Yes. So that's where you can find me.
All
All
right.
positivity is welcome. I don't.
Yes.
I will use the block button for negativity.
Heard. Heard. Um, so my last question, and it harkens a little bit back to our earlier discussion of Gilmore Girls. So if you could have a Luke's Diner in your life, a place where you could write, get coffee, snacks, and have absolutely no one bother you, what would it look like? And if you could pick someone from the Gilmore Girls universe to write a spin-off story about, who would it be?
Oh, you get an A+ today for your question. Oh my! I'm so glad you didn't ask me which team I am. Like Team Dean, Team Jess, or Team Logan, because I'm
Right.
not going to tell you because then the people are stop. They're not going to read my book. Well, they know. Um, okay. I would jump at that chance. Okay, so it would not look like a diner. I need like a library vibe with dark wood. I need a comfy chaise lounge or a huge oversized chair. I don't drink coffee, but I drink gallons of tea, like herbal teas, right? I'd
Mhm,
have to have some popcorn, some green grapes. Think popcorn, think Olivia Pope from Scandal. I don't
mhm,
drink wine though, but I do eat a lot of popcorn. Who could I write a story about?
mhm.
Wow. So I can tell you because I was inspired by the Gilmore Girls. I have actually um, done the plot point. If I were to write the story that brought us to my perfect family, so I would write Lorelai's story, and in my case, it's Asia. So I would
Mm.
definitely want to write her. I would definitely want it like that's a given for me. Um, I think, but I really have a strong urge to write a character like Lane
Mm,
because of her situation, because of with
yes.
her unreasonable mom. Only like I think I've seen because I own all 7 seasons on DVD. I think
Mhm,
we saw like her father once or twice, but there wasn't a lot of focus on him. But like because of her relationship with her mom and her
mhm,
like secret life and the life under the floorboards type of thing,
mhm.
um, I would I would definitely gravitate towards writing Lane's story. Like I would love to write a story about Lane, like if she actually ended up at the certain college that her mother wanted her to go to. Like
Right.
I could
Yeah.
totally see that.
Yeah.
Of course, I would have to change Lane. She'd have to be black. So I write, But I think like for me, like I really want to write an identity based story. Like I want my main character to come across. I want to write since I don't write stereotypes. I want to write a story where you have a black character who is identity is kind of questionable because of her life situation, and then I want another black person to question, her to like bring up these questions for her.
Yeah.
Like I want, I'm just like really just thinking right now, but yeah, I totally Lane. Just give me Lane.
Yeah. I would read that 100%. 100% would read that.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, because she was. I think whoever wrote and came up with her was brilliant.
Yeah.
Because it showed like she had a safe space, which was her best friend Rory, which was Lorelai's
Right.
house, and you saw that from like whenever she would, when she had the band, and she had all the hidden things. You
Mhm.
totally saw, like I think that that personifies so much because her parent was in Lane's view, of course, unreasonable. And of course, I hope that the mom, was written out of love, that she was doing it out of love, and I would hope that'd be the case. But it was so well constructed that, yeah, and this is why she was doing it.
Well, those are my questions. This has been so much fun. And I'm so excited for everyone to get a chance to read your latest publication. We always hope for bestsellers around here, so I'm putting that out into the universe for you.
Thank you, and I totally appreciate you, and I'm so glad that you took the chance on yourself for this interview, for this podcast that you have, Blacksmith Stacks. It's just amazing, and I thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, thank you. And I would love to, like, once the book is out and people have had the chance to read it, I would love to have you back and kind of do a deep dive on it if you're willing.
Oh, definitely, I am definitely willing. If people want to be like, "How could you do this to me?" I'm so sorry. But yeah, do you understand why?
Right, right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely, because I want to hear from, I can take constructive criticism. I just don't take negativity. I don't
Right.
take, meanness just for meanness, or how could you? No, no. Sorry. Next. I don't do that.
No negativity. Perfect way to
I'm
end.
good.
I hope you have a wonderful evening.
You too, and have a great weekend.
Thank you. Same.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.
For more information, you can visit us online at www.blackinthestacks.com and find us on most social media platforms at Black in the Stacks.